Welcome to the Together Bay Area 2020 Fall Forum. I'm Annie Burke. I'm the Executive Director of Together Bay Area. Thank you for joining us today. We're all online in order to stay safe and healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic. But we have a lot in store for you today over the next 2 days as we come together with the Fall Forum. But before I tell you all about what's going to happen, we want to start this event by hearing from the original stewards of these lands. We are all on Indigenous land. Together Bay Area recognizes and honors that Indigenous people have lived here for 10,000 plus years, and they are still here today, living, working, praying, speaking their language, and working to reconnect to their ancestral lands. Please join me in welcoming Monica Arellano and Gloria Arellano Gomez, tribal council members of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. As we start this fall forum with Together Bay Area, we want to acknowledge that we all are located, living, and working on Indigenous land. Every inch of land in the United States is Indigenous land. And we don't want to go too far into this event before acknowledging that fact and welcoming tribal leadership from where we are, from the Together Bay Area offices in what is now known as Berkeley, California, to welcome us to their territory. So with that, I am deeply honored to introduce you to Vice Chairwoman Monica Arellano of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of San Francisco Bay Area, and Gloria Arellano Gomez, a council member with the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. With that, please join me in welcoming them to this space. And thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. I would like to present a welcoming declaration to Muwekma's ancestral homeland and opening blessing in our native Chochenyo language. Horshe Tuhi, Kanak Rakat, Monica Villarreano, Wetrish Kuchush, Muwekma Wulwulam, San Francisco Bay Area Tak. Good day. I greet you today in our native Chochenyo language. My name is Monica Villarreano. I am the Vice Chairwoman for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Kanamin Kanak Apa Joel, Chocho Kanak Papa Kush Albert, Chocho Kanak Mele Kush Mercedes, Kanak Suyakma Marin. I am the daughter of Joel Cota Arellano Sr., granddaughter of Albert Marin Arellano, and great-granddaughter of Mercedes Marin. I am from the Marin lineage. With me today are Muwekma Ohlone tribal members. We are Muwekma Ohlone. Welcome to Muwekma's ancestral homeland, where we are born. Menemu nepetuhi exuyakma Muwekma. Makin mak Muwekma wulwulam. Akoy makwaret mani makiswi. On behalf of our people, Muwekma, la gente, we would like to offer an official welcoming to our ancestral homeland, to this ethno-historic tribal territory of the intermarried Huchin, Halkin, Chochenyo, Ohlone speaking tribal group. Today, the city of Berkeley and surrounding towns reside in our Huchin ancestral Muwekma Ohlone tribal territory. We welcome everyone in attendance to the Together Bay Area First Fall Forum. We welcome everyone to our Holsheware, beautiful ancestral homeland. As traditionally done and in honor of our ancestors, we offer an opening prayer in our native Chochenyo language as a blessing for today's event, followed by a Muwekma Ohlone tribal land acknowledgement. Muwekma Isai Chochenyo, the people's prayer in Chochenyo. Exuyakma, ekachokma, ruhi, hoshe roket, tamakam, kamhaik nenomo, hemet tamakin, makrote himetka, makin mak alship, takamishik, hitinomo, hemen heeshmin, menehishmit, ki mishmakin. Makish horshe makinan, tamakrote himetka, matkierku ruai, tamakhiku haye, tamakrote himetka, hayek mak makinan, kish horshe kinan, tashbuk makam, makiwe. Thank you. Take care of yourself. I have finished.
Horshetuhi, Gana Kraka, Gloria Arellano Gomez. I would like to read a Muwekma Ohlone tribal land acknowledgement for the city of Berkeley and surrounding region, Huchuin, Halkin, ancestral Muwekma Ohlone territory. We would like to recognize that while we gather for the Together Bay Area First Fall Forum located in Berkeley, California, we are gathered on the ethno-historic tribal territory of the intermarried Huichin, Halkin, Chochenyo Ohlone-speaking tribal groups, who were the direct ancestors of most of the lineages enrolled in the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. The present-day Muwekma Ohlone tribe, with a Bureau of Indian Affairs documented enrolled membership of over 600 members, is comprised of all the known surviving Indian lineages aboriginal to the San Francisco Bay region, who trace our ancestry through the Mission San Francisco, San Jose, Santa Clara, during the advent of the Hispano-European Empire into Alta California beginning in AD 1769, and who are the successors and living members of the sovereign, historic, previously federally recognized Verona Band of Alameda County, now known as the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. The land on which the Together Bay Area Fall Forum is taking place in Berkeley was and continues to be of great importance and significance for our Muwekma Ohlone tribal people. This region extends to surrounding areas that held several tupentaks, traditional semi-subterranean spiritual roundhouses, which were places of celebration, healing, rituals, dances, and ceremonies, as well as nearby ancestral heritage shale mound sites, such as West Berkeley and Emeryville, adjacent to Temazcal Creek, which served as our traditional cemetery sites and territorial monuments for high lineage families, craft specialists, and fallen warriors. The city of Berkeley, where Together Bay Area Fall Forum will be held, is where many of our ancestral heritage cemetery and village sites are located. These localities are viewed as special and sacred places, and we respectfully acknowledge that they had been previously settled and owned by our ancestral Muwekma tribal groups for many thousands of years. The location of the nearby Fairmont County Hospital in San Leandro to the south was a place of one of the tribe's major rancherias called the Springs during the middle to late 1800s, where families planted various crops and raised cattle until our people were forced off our lands. The city of Berkeley is established within our ancestral Huichin, Halkin, Ohlone tribe ethnohistoric territory, which based upon the unratified federal treaties of 1851 to 1852 includes the unceded ancestral lands of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. Mission San Francisco and San Jose records document that many of the enrolled Muwekma lineages are directly descended from the Huichin, Halkin, Chochenyo Ohlone speaking tribal groups, as well as from neighboring Ohlone tribes. As we gather for the Together Bay Area First Fall Forum in Berkeley, it is important that we not only recognize the history of the land, Huichin, Halkin, in which we gather to learn and participate, but also recognize that we, the first people of this region, the Muwekma Ohlone people, are alive and thriving members of the greater Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today. Because of the tenacity and strength of our ancestors and elders, our people have been able to maintain our traditions and keep our culture alive. And furthermore, we have never left our indigenous ancestral land. Today, we repair the sustained damages of 251 years of colonization, and we are focused on keeping our traditional culture strong while we work for a bright and favorable future for our children as we follow in the footsteps of our ancestors. We respectfully request that the citizens of the city of Berkeley strive to be good stewards on behalf of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe by maintaining the bay, fresh waterways, animal habitats, and the air we all breathe. Furthermore, we request that the city of Berkeley honor the military service of the Muwekma men and women who have honorably served overseas during World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, and who are still serving in the United States Armed Forces today, and as well as those Native Americans from our tribal cousins from California and North and South America. In closing, it is of great importance to acknowledge the significance of this Holshe Ware, beautiful land, to the indigenous Muwekma Ohlone people of this region. We ask everyone who visits Berkeley to be respectful of the Aboriginal lands of the Muwekma Ohlone people, and consistent with our principles of community, strive to be good stewards on behalf of the Muwekma tribe, on whose land you are guests. Kishochekinan. Thank you. Aho.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing, for being here, for inviting us, for welcoming us to your territory. We're deeply honored and we're deeply respectful of you and your tribe and these lands that we're on. Thank you both very much.
Kishochekinan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us and allowing us to present what we said today.
Thank you, Tribal Council members Arellano and Arellano Gomez. We are honored to have you a part of this event, and we are humbled that the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area has joined Together Bay Area as a member. We are coming together today and tomorrow, October 1st and 2nd, 2020, in the midst of multiple crises: COVID-19 pandemic, systemic racism and social inequalities, an economic downturn, divisive politics, catastrophic wildfires, and climate change. But we were built for this moment. Together Bay Area is a small and nimble regional coalition standing with our 65 member organizations for climate resilience and social equity. Since transitioning from the Bay Area Open Space Council to Together Bay Area in 2019, we have convened dozens of community conversations, webinars, meetings, and small events. We have formed a policy committee and opened lines of communication with elected officials. And we have a board of directors whose job it is to govern and steward this regional coalition. I'd like to introduce you to them.
Hi, I'm Lisa Baldinger with the East Bay Regional Park District. We are Together Bay Area.
My name is Liz Westbrook with the Bay Area Ridge Trail Council. We are Together Bay Area.
Hi, I'm Noelle Chambers-Thurlow with Peninsula Open Space Trust. We are Together Bay Area.
Hi, I'm Max Korten. I'm the Director of Marin County Parks. We are Together Bay Area.
My name is Bill Keene. I'm the General Manager of Sonoma Ag and Open Space. We are Together Bay Area.
I'm Ana Ruiz, General Manager of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. We are Together Bay Area.
Hi, I'm Andrea McKenzie with the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. We are Together Bay Area.
I'm Tim Ramirez with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. We are Together Bay Area.
Hello, my name is Laura Rodriguez. I'm Director of Programs at Youth Outside. We are Together Bay Area.
Hi, I'm SHELANA DESILVA with Together Bay Area. We are Together Bay Area.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Beers with Together Bay Area. We are Together Bay Area.
Thank you, board members, for your service, governance, strategic thinking, and stewardship of this organization. Now I want to introduce my colleague, the Political Director of Together Bay Area, SHELANA DESILVA. SHELANA leads our advocacy program to secure funding for our members' programs and projects and help shape policies that build climate resilience and support social equity. She'll also be moderating our panels today and tomorrow. It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce SHELANA DESILVA.
Thanks so much, Annie, and welcome everybody. Together Bay Area currently has 65 members who are working for climate resilience and social equity across the 9 counties of the Bay Area, including Santa Cruz County. 25% of our members have joined us since mid-March when COVID-19 shelter-in-place orders went into effect. Our members include Bay Area tribes, public agencies, and nonprofits with a vast diversity of focus areas like environmental education, protecting habitat, delivering drinking water, preserving cultural practices, and managing public access to nature. You can get to know our members a little better by checking them out at togetherbayarea.org/members. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of our policy committee, which includes member organizations from almost every county in our region. The policy committee helps this coalition to take action, and they are guiding us towards a more equitable, climate-adapted region. And we're so grateful for their effort.
Thanks, SHELANA. This fall forum wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, and I really want to thank them. Specifically, REI, Coastal Conservancy, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, AECOM, BKF Engineers, Outer Spatial, Pacific Policy Group, Semper Virens Fund, Trail People, and WRA Inc. Thank you all so much for your support of this fall forum and regional collaboration in general. As we come together as a region during all of the crises we're facing, we want to take this time to reset and recharge. We want to get grounded in what's happening now and find the strength and inspiration to shape a more resilient and equitable future. I invite you to put your phone down, turn off your notifications, and take a deep breath. I invite you to just be here now. To kick off this fall forum, we'll hear from two people with interesting perspectives, who think deeply, and who are leading the way to a brighter future. They are both helping breathe life into the phoenix that will rise from these ashes. The first speaker, he just started a new job, and he's here to tell us about it. I'm really thrilled now to have an opportunity to talk to the new California State Parks Director, Armando Quintero. Armando is a Bay Area person, has spent a lot of his personal and professional life here in the region, and has been on in his new role less than a month. But he is familiar to many of us in the Bay Area with his involvement in various different public agencies and nonprofits here in the Bay Area. And I'm thrilled to have you here. So welcome, Armando.
Thank you, Annie.
Before I turn to you, I just want to say that as a regional coalition of Indigenous tribes, public agencies, and nonprofits, we're working together for climate resilience and social equity. And collaboration is a big part of who we are and how we work. And that's California State Parks is part of the fabric of the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
We recreate, we partner, we live and work near state parks. And you are now running an agency that we really believe in and care about. And so we're really deeply honored that you're here today. So thank you.
Thank you.
How are you doing? I asked that as a small question, maybe with big implications, but also in your new role. So I'm curious, how are you?
Thank you, Annie. I'm doing well. You know, to step into this role at this moment is really more astonishing than anything I ever imagined. I mean, we've got the pressures of COVID. You know, we've seen and see tremendous social unrest, and now we've had these fires, and you know, these fires with the coming winter. I mean, these, you know, with over 3.4 million acres burned in California, with still some fires going strong. You know, in the last 20 years, the average number of acres that have burned in a year's fire season has been about 700,000 acres. So we're way beyond that. And as you know, temperatures in LA were 120 degrees a few weeks ago, which is just never been recorded before. So to literally be stepping into this role with an agency that oversees over 280 parks and has made investments through our grants programs in virtually every community, or every certainly legislative district in the state, to the tune of $2 billion of investments in playgrounds and education programs at zoos and things like that. You know, it's an astonishing position to be a place where people come to look at the world, really. And in this moment, when we've got the pressures of climate change, clearly issues of equity and access, it's really interesting to me to be hearing the conversations from employees, from stakeholders, from members of the public. And so really, how am I doing? It's really refreshing to feel like a student again. And I enter this role, hopefully, with the ability to maintain fresh eyes for as long as I can, because I think the world in which we are right now demands fresh eyes all the time. Tomorrow, I'm sure that tomorrow will be presenting us challenges that we didn't expect, and also outcomes that we couldn't have predicted. So we all have to stay awake.
It sounds both inspiring and also like a lot of work that you're undertaking. Just a lot of respect for you and the role that you're stepping into. As you step into this role, given all the things you just shared, this is not a business as usual kind of starting a new job, where's my office, here's your computer kind of situation. So kind of tell us a little bit about how you've what it's been like to start your new position and kind of what you see looking ahead, just and recognizing that it's still early days, so no pressure to lay out a detailed plan, but just kind of what is your perspective as you start your new?
Well, I mean, it taps into the things that I just said a moment ago, and my first day on the job is maybe a good indicator of what my life feels like it'll be like for at least a few years. I was supposed to go to Sacramento to get sworn in on my first day, and the day before that, I was told to go to Santa Cruz and go to the Emergency Operations Center for State Parks in Scotts Valley. I went there, got sworn in by Zoom, and then turned the corner, and there were about 40 employees from state parks standing there who worked in the state parks in Santa Cruz, as well as folks from Sacramento. Some of these employees actually just days before had been helping evacuate visitors from Big Basin, while in the distance they could see their homes, they could see their homes burning. So to literally in the first moments of stepping into this role, to face employees who really are so dedicated and who love not only these places, but the people and the visitors and the creatures of these places so much, and to see what was happening at that moment was just really astonishing. And I said to you, Annie, a little while ago, my heart really was on the pavement. And it's rare that we get to start positions with a perspective like that, really a grounding, if you will. And then a few hours later, I was at the Big Basin headquarters, where virtually every building was reduced to ash. Brand new visitor center, the entire collection for natural history collection for Big Basin reduced to ash, and that's where we were standing. And we toured with the governor and the secretary that area just hours later. And so on my first day, in the first hours, to be introduced to this world from that place was just stunning, and sort of laid out what we're going to have to be thinking about going forward. And I'll just mention some of the things that we really have to consider as we manage public lands. And there's some of the things that you mentioned, certainly how do we operate in a world where the climate is changing so dramatically? How do we plan and rebuild places like Big Basin with an intentional focus around equity and access, at the same time that we're looking at the charge of public lands having to do with biodiversity and habitat improvement and care. And then really an amazing overlay of all this is that COVID has illuminated these public lands as essential landscapes. I mean, they're more important than ever to the public. So the combination of all those things is an extraordinary responsibility, but one that I think needs to be shared with every citizen, if you will. These places are as much their home as their homes are. And that's how I think of it. And not everyone can access them physically necessarily, but we have evolved as humans who operate through story. And I think that we have an extraordinary opportunity to really delve deep into the stories of what it means to be human right now, and what it is that we can do to assure a sustainable future for our families and our future generations and these places.
I'm both, I'm feeling very empathetic to the weight of what you've shared, but also really inspired because it is, I don't hear in your words, your tone, well, this sucks. What I hear is, how do we turn? How do we think differently? How do we approach this with an open mind to what we can learn and what we can change and what we can grow? So it feels much more creative and generative than what I think a lot of people are feeling, frankly, which is an enormous amount of weight on our shoulders and what's going to happen next, dread. And so it's very refreshing to hear that.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I think that, a really smart survival strategy is to adapt. And I think one of my favorite stories about survival is we've all heard stories of the 5 and 4 and 6-year-old kids who get lost in the wilderness for 3 or 4 days. And when they're found, they're in great shape. They might be a little dirty, they might be a little cold, they might be missing their pants or a sock or something. But all of these kids have something in common, and that is that what they did is they ate when they were hungry, drank something when they were thirsty, got warm when they were cold, slept when they were tired. And as adults, we try to think stuff through and just push ourselves beyond our ability to make clear and important decisions. And I think that we are in a place where not being able to predict tomorrow, a strength to develop is one of adaptive management. But also with the questions that I raised earlier. So how do we address a changing climate? What are the decisions that we make that we think will have better outcomes based on science? And I think that it's also going to take better engagement with all communities to understand them, as opposed to convincing other communities that they need to behave like me or like you. And I think that that's going to take a bit of actually vulnerability. I think that we're in a place where the ideas and the traditions around public lands are going to be rethought. And I'll finish with this, and that is, having been a student of parks, for a long time, since the mid-70s, and being a Latino kid, I actually have looked at park organizations as these cultures that I had to understand, in order to be a part of them. And one of the things that has struck me for a long time is that the elements of the cultures of the conservation organizations and such, while it does evolve with science, it's rooted in Victorian era views of the world, and acknowledging that without dissing it, but just acknowledging that I think can put us in a position of owning where we are right now. And so we now are in a position to say, so what are the new traditions, and what are the new sustainable traditions that we do, not just for places, but for people? So it's really exciting, but it's also, you're right, we're in a really tough spot right now.
Let's keep talking about equitable access and what it means for people who don't identify in that Victorian colonial kind of mindset, but also for Indigenous people, for all kinds of, for the full diversity of who California really is. And what does it, how do you think about embracing and building a culture around that celebrates and honors that full diversity within state parks?
I mean, we all have deep heritage, a deep heritages and heritage, whether we know what it is or not. And I think that creating sort of a great, I was saying to you earlier, oftentimes folks will say, oh, I'm a 3rd generation Californian, or I'm a 7th generation farmer. But what we don't hear in those conversations, and I hope that we hear this more, is I'm a 10,000th generation member of the people who've lived here, and I had my DNA work done a little while ago, and I was dumbfounded when almost 1/3 of my DNA is actually, according to this, this test, is over 10,000 years of ancestry in the Western Hemisphere in my DNA. I got very emotional when I saw that. I didn't know that. I identify as Mexican American. And so I think that the role or the presence or the acknowledgement, shouldn't even say role, forgive me for that, but the acknowledgement and the presence of the descendants of the first people here is really quite astonishing. You know, the stories of the Chumash people in the South Coast, the Coast Miwok in this area, the Kashaya-Pomo people from just north of the Bay Area, the Sierran Miwok, you know, the Eastern Sierran groups. And I've backpacked throughout the Sierra Nevada, and there is plenty of evidence of people gathering at these high meadows in the summer to trade goods from the western side of the Sierra to the eastern. Tulare Lake down in Fresno was the largest concentration, as I understand it, of Native Americans in a pre-European history context. And Tulare Lake, when you look at the artifacts that have been found there, was an incredible tech transfer area. I mean, it's like the first people, I think we really need to acknowledge the cultures that they are, the civilizations that they are, as just a part of the story of not only the people who live here, but of the landscapes. Humans have been affecting the landscapes where we live for 10,000 years plus. You know, this was not a wilderness when we arrived, the European parts of us arrived in our ancestry. And I just think that it's a whole story. And I also think, and I'll finish with this, that I think that in working with children and with families, the invitation really is not one of being exclusive or excluded, but it's to understand their stories in the context of these places. And again, I think that we all collectively own these spaces. So I'm really excited about the idea of embracing the first people along with the coming generations, but telling stories as accurately as we can about those phases and where we are today.
I hear a lot of honesty and openness and learning in that. And it's something that we try to do also at Together Bay Area, that, you know, to be in a space of doing our best and knowing that it's not enough and that there's always more to do, but always continuing to strive for equity and inclusion and taking steps and taking actions, being okay with what we're doing, but also knowing that there's always more and that it's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think a recognition that these cultures, our cultures, they're alive. And so we are actually still in the act of creating as cultures and as interactions with others. I mean, I love to hear new coyote stories because that is what happens. There are, and you know, they come from dreams, they come from experiences, they come from ceremonies. And so I also think that that's a really important part of what you're talking about, Annie, is living cultures coming together.
So speaking of living cultures, fire is part of Indigenous, well, it's part of life and certainly part of the Indigenous people's culture. And it's become more and more part of our lives after 100+ years of suppressing it across the West. Talk to me a little bit about the department's response and thinking about the wildfires that we're living through now. And before I let you answer, I want to acknowledge that, you know, we often call the agency you run state parks, but there's also a whole natural resources component to the work that you do, that it isn't just about the parks that we go visit, but under your care are hundreds of thousands of acres of land, of forests, of coastal prairies, of all kinds of natural resources. So just want to acknowledge that component to the work that you do, and talk to me a little bit about fire. It's not a small topic, I know, but.
No, that's right. Well, I mean, I think we all know the story that we have been for over 150 years, 170 years, we've been suppressing fire in the West because we thought that was the thing to do. In fact, if you look at the enabling legislation of the California state parks, in some of the earliest documents, it talks about how once these parks are established, there will no longer be catastrophic fires. I just read that 2 weeks ago. And in fact, it's sitting here. I printed it out when I saw that, and I thought, it's because every time in history, when we've created a new reservoir, done some new project, the headline in the paper is always, hey, we've solved this problem forever. And I hope that we learn that we can't say that anymore, that we've got an approach for now, and how do we work toward the future? So with fire, there's several things. Obviously, the intensity of fires that we are seeing is unlike anything anybody's ever seen in California. And I don't know that this is borne out yet, but I would be surprised if in the dendrology record, in the record of tree rings and such, that there would be evidence of fires as catastrophic as we're experiencing now. But I don't know if that's true. I wouldn't be surprised. But there's a couple things. One of them, Big Basin, a park that's coast redwoods in the Santa Cruz Mountains, a place that's dominated by fog and very moist soils and really rich, damp canyons. The flame height at the headquarters area was estimated to be, during this fire recently, 300 to 500 feet. Just unbelievably unheard of. So we're seeing things like we've never seen before. But what we're also seeing is, and we're still trying to get a handle on it, is understanding how these forests, how these systems are going to do in their recovery. And so there's going to be a lot of learning going on right now with what we're seeing in these areas that were so devastated by fire. There has been a fair amount of work by a number of agencies in moving ahead with more intense forest management. The Secretary of Resources has a deputy director whose entire focus is watersheds. And that's Jessica Morse. And Jessica Morse just put together a program with the U.S. Forest Service and other land managers to aggressively treat 500,000 acres of watershed and forest per year to reduce the fire hazard. And it's using a bunch of approaches. State parks and many public lands agencies have been applying the science of controlled burns. And I was just in Lake Tahoe last week looking at areas that have been burned over the last 20 years. And it's really interesting. I think that in a nutshell, I think going forward, we have to be looking at landscapes for the whole range of multiple benefits of how we manage them. And so, for example, right now when people talk about fire, they'll talk about these intense fires literally just burning the soil to the point that it, in essence, has sterilized the soil, has made minerals inaccessible. If heavy rains come after an intense fire like this, the rain will just slough off the surface of the soil, and there'll be landslides and debris and siltation that can also be toxic. But here's the thing, as you apply healthier forest practices, you end up affecting a number of things. One of them is a thinner forest actually gets more snow on the ground where snow falls. And if snow's on the ground, it can melt and penetrate and create more soil moisture as well as groundwater supply. When you have a forest that's so dense that the snow doesn't hit the ground, what the snow does is it does something called sublimation. And sublimation means that the snow goes from a solid to a gas without ever becoming water. So we lose water supply for the trees themselves, for the watersheds, and for the downstream, for us, for the water that we use. Healthier soils also actually act like a sponge, and not only do they retain water, but there's important work that shows that all of the soils in the world, if they were healthy, could actually sequester twice as much carbon as all the vegetation in the world. So managing forests is far more than reducing fire. It's actually creating an entire system that is healthier, that benefits us with clean water, clean air, just healthier systems. And so in terms of fire, there's a lot of learning going on right now. We're certainly looking at, we're just putting together right now the recovery plan for Big Basin. There are 9 state parks that were affected by fire. And so as we put together this work for Big Basin, we're going to be turning around and looking at the other parks and how we work on the recovery plans there. It's an extraordinary learning opportunity. And there are a bunch of partners that are coming to the table, say the Redwoods League, Semper Virens Fund, National Geographic, Arizona State University, and other university systems. It's an extraordinary time for learning. And as I said to you before we recorded this morning, thinking about this and talking with someone the other day, I said, I really wonder what this Phoenix is going to look like, because that is our task, is rising from these ashes.
I hope that Phoenix is equitable, science-based, is inclusive, is bold, is learns from the past and adapts. And thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for joining us today, Together Bay Area. We really look forward to working with you. There's a lot to do ahead. There's a lot of challenges, but we're with you. We stand with you in shaping that Phoenix, building that Phoenix. Do we build a Phoenix or shape a Phoenix or draw a Phoenix?
I think we give it life. It's going to have its own. It's going to have its own life. And so we just have to nurture. I think we just have to nurture the Phoenix. How's that?
We breathe life into the Phoenix. How about, yeah, that sounds great. Well, thank you very much for coming. Really glad that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the work you're all doing.
Thank you, Armando. We are grateful for your service, and we look forward to partnering with you. Our second speaker is someone who has influenced so many people and inspired them to think expansively and inclusively about the natural world. Hello, welcome. I'm really thrilled to have with us today José Gonzalez, and we are going to talk a little bit about what's going on in this moment and how we can meet the moment and join the movement and stay positive. José Gonzalez is a writer, artist, speaker, consultant, network weaver, thought leader, partner, collaborator, friend. And he is out in front, always thinking a few steps or 20 steps ahead of many other people. But I also want to recognize that José has been a friend and partner for many years, and is also very quick to recognize that this is a collective effort, that he is not carrying all the weight on his shoulders, or there isn't one person carrying all the weight on anyone's shoulders, that we're really part of something together. And so with that, I welcome José and thank him for making the time to be here today. José, how are you doing? And welcome.
Great, thank you, Annie. Buenos días. Saludos to everybody. That's a good question, obviously, within the context we're on today. How are you? And the two things that I've wrestled with that have been that reminder of kind of talking about Buddhist truths, right? To be honest with yourself and others, that it's okay to say, I am doing well, and I'm also not okay. And that working with those sets of perpendicular feelings and emotions, it's perfectly normal in this time.
That's right. There's an enormous amount of things going on. And I think holding those dualities really resonates with me. So yeah, thank you. So knowing that there is so much going on and that listening and watching this conversation are people who work for park agencies, land trusts, and community-based organizations, public agencies from all different levels, really people who are caring about and working for land, people and communities, people who are working for climate resilience and social equity. I'd love to hear what you have to say, José, to them in this moment and how we can move forward together.
Certainly. I'm blessed to be able to continue to learn. And with that in mind, I have a few thoughts that I've shared before that I woven together here. So that's what I'm going to share with you all now. So when we are challenged is a time to see in what values we have rooted ourselves. As we face difficulties, it's still an invitation to visualize and manifest potential, our apical meristem growing forth. Many of my learnings are still guided by nature, its elemental forces, and the very landscapes we have committed to protect and steward. To me, it's actually a process of reconnection and healing severed connections. That the radical and revolutionary is a returning to our roots and regenerative cycles. From the river, I've received the blessing of flow that is not linear. Its sinuous emergence is the balance and interplay of divergence and convergence, of engaging in difference and connecting in commonality. From the seed, the offering of the power of potential. A tree seed has all the treeness within. We can count the seeds in the fruit as well, less so the fruit in the seed, yet it's all there. From the fire, the gift of creation and sacredness, as well as destruction. If we myopically suppress it to the neglect of its multiple roles, then we only increase its destructive intensity, reducing the potential of healthy succession. From the ecotone, the unfolding of edge effect, abundance and overlapping difference, and so much more. We know how to be reactive. In emergency and crisis, there is a role for quick responsive action. Two questions may be, do we respond to all as a chaotic crisis? Do we invest in life-affirming systems as much as we respond to the oppressive and harmful ones? As Adrienne Marie Brown also notes in Emergent Strategy, oak trees don't set an intention to listen to each other better or agree to hold tight to each other when the next storm comes. Under the earth, always, they reach for each other. They grow such that their roots are intertwined and create a system of strength that is as resilient on a sunny day as it is in a hurricane. And yes, these are lessons for each other. As Professor Vincent Basile shares in Decriminalizing Practices, Disrupting Punitive-Based Racial Oppression of Voice of Color in Elementary School Classrooms, a powerful practice is one where we presume brilliance. Imagine the power of that for our youth and young adults of color in our indoor and outdoor classrooms and spaces, on our Black and Brown communities on the trail and in the street, in all of our interactions with those facing historical, institutional, and systemic oppression. Because as we tackle the wicked problem of climate change, we cannot leave out additional inconvenient truths. That Black lives matter, that Native sovereignty matters, that systemic inequities are not random and inconsequential, that there is a need, a necessity for climate justice. This is an invitation to see that any discomfort from this is a source of learning and growth, to do better, to understand tension and address conflict with intention, because there will continue to be that which seeks to break us. The human condition is one that holds space for mistakes, errors, and misalignments. A question is, as Larry Yang asks in Awakening Together, the spiritual practice of inclusivity, how do we hold each other to break together rather than break apart? To move with pains as we heal, and in doing so, as Nick Montgomery and Carla Bergman state in Joyful Militancy, have differences become starting points for new complicities and the growth of shared power. Now, this is not to pitch a Pollyannish simplicity. If we seek transformation, it is as much a messy process as a wondrous one. As the butterfly shows us in Metamorphosis, structural change is necessary for the next steps. The old dies in liquefaction for the building of the new. Thus, some things do not continue, yet nothing is wasted. Of course, we are not butterflies. Still, a danger has been in amplifying and accelerating our disconnection from nature. And yet in reconnection, it is also not an invitation to deny the magic of our quantum, cultural, and intersectional humanity. For as much as we've wielded our capacity and power to shape our world in ways that have harmed us, we can do the same to reshape it in ways that can heal us. We have become that species that is culpable. Now it is our reminder of the interdependent responsibility, what Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer calls restorative reciprocity. An appreciation of gifts and the responsibilities that come with them, and how gratitude can be medicine for our sick capitalistic world. This is also what our non-human kin are waiting on us for the moment. So as we begin, can we move forward with the courage of that first root and shoot, guided to light and nurturing? Can we, as Adrienne Marie Brown notes, be like dandelions, who don't know whether they are a weed or a brilliance, but with each seed can create a field of dandelions. To be invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. Can we do it? Of course. Otherwise, we would not be meeting here today. It is in this chrysalis of space, together, that we can lean into our imaginal selves during this transformation. An invitation to dream, envision, act, do, and transform, to take flight into more of what is possible. Porque pa adelante, siempre pa adelante. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jose. One of the things that really strikes me about what the words you just shared is the duality of both the hard and the beautiful, and the nature and the human systems, of course, humans being part of nature, but that really using both halves, using the yin and the yang, or however you want to describe it. I wonder if you could talk just for a second about how you hold both of those. How do you hold the hard, the light and the dark, or the beauty and the pain?
Yeah, it's a great question. Not to be flippant and just say with practice, although I think that is a three-part, at minimum, a three-part kind of space holding for me, which is one is, as I mentioned, first, what do you reach yourself in? So what are the intentions that you set? Because then those can lead to what kind of practices you'll engage in, and while being accountable and responsible, but ultimately into what kind of impacts that will have. And so I think it's holding that, because you see so much of these references, right, across so many different practices, cultures, spaces, communities, and so forth. And I think it's just, to me, it's a recognition that at minimum in two ways is, one, if you purely focus on the extreme of one, you lose its relationship and perspective to the others, which can better amplify, it's the reasons why you might even add a little salt to the cookies, because it can heighten the sweetness. So there's that. And then the other one, I think, to me, it's the reality of acknowledging that our natural world, our reality, is an invitation of that. It is more through our simplification of how we view it that we've lost so much, rather than paying attention to that amplification of what it's offering us. And so I think, as I said at the beginning, this idea of perpendicular emotions, what may seem at odds at each other, it's that idea of expanding your heart like a river as well, and it can hold more.
It's really beautiful. Thank you so much for those words, for all the work that you do. Thank you for inviting those other authors, those other voices into this conversation too. You're really inspiring me to dive more into those works. So I hope we can get a book list from you.
That can be arranged.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jose. Please take good care.
Igualmente a todos. Thank you so much, Annie.
Thank you, Jose. And thank you to everyone who has made this opening session possible. We invite you to watch all of the Fall Forum sessions. There's one on jobs, climate change, and equity. There's one on parks and COVID and equitable access to the outdoors. And there's a third that's about the systemic changes that we need to live with fire. We thank all of our sponsors for making this Fall Forum possible. And we invite you to learn more about the work that we're doing at Together Bay Area. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our website, togetherbayarea.org, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Together Bay Area. We thank you so much for joining us, for all the work that you do for lands, people, and communities, and we hope that you'll just take care. Thank you.